For over a century, millions of Americans believed a story that simply was not true. They believed a man named Abner Doubleday invented baseball in a small cow pasture in Cooperstown, New York, in the year 1839, a tidy, patriotic legend perfect for a young country looking for a hero and an origin story of its own. There is just one problem. It never happened. Doubleday was not even in Cooperstown that year, and he never once claimed to have invented the game. So if baseball didn't start there, where did it actually come from? The real answer is far messier, far more international, and far more fascinating than the myth ever was. This story matters because baseball is not just a sport in America. It is woven into the identity of the country itself, called the national pastime for well over 100 years. But the true origin of that pastime reveals something important: that America's most celebrated game was never purely American at all. It was built from pieces borrowed, adapted, and reshaped from games that had existed across England and Europe for generations. And understanding that truth changes the entire way we should think about where this sport, and maybe even American identity itself, really came from. The real roots of baseball stretch back to England, centuries before anyone in America ever picked up a bat. Games involving hitting a ball with a stick and running between bases existed in various forms throughout the 18th century, most notably a game called rounders, which English children played with rules strikingly similar to modern baseball, hitting a pitched ball and running around a series of bases to score points. Another English game, sometimes referred to simply as baseball in old documents, was mentioned in a 1744 British publication called A Little Pretty Pocketbook, which included a rhyme and illustration depicting children playing a bat and ball game under that exact name, decades before Doubleday was even born. When English colonists and immigrants crossed the Atlantic, they brought these games with them, and American children began adapting the rules to fit their own communities. The earliest documented evidence of baseball being played on American soil comes from Pittsfield, Massachusetts, where a town bylaw from 1791 explicitly banned playing baseball within 80 yards of the town's new meeting house, protecting its windows from being broken by stray hits. That single sentence, buried in an old town record, is considered one of the earliest known written references to baseball in America, predating the Doubleday legend by nearly half a century. Throughout the early 1800s, various versions of bat and ball games spread informally across American towns and cities, each region playing by its own loose, unofficial rules, with no standardized structure connecting any of them. The true turning point, the moment baseball began transforming from a scattered folk game into an organized sport, arrived in 1845 in New York City. A bookseller and volunteer firefighter named Alexander Cartwright, along with a group of fellow enthusiasts, formed the Knickerbocker Baseball Club and wrote down a formal set of rules meant to standardize how the game should be played. These rules introduced concepts that still define baseball today, including foul territory lines, 3 strikes per batter, and most importantly, banning the practice of getting a runner out by throwing the ball directly at them, a brutal and painful tactic borrowed from earlier folk versions of the game. On June 19, 1846, the Knickerbockers played what is widely considered the first officially recorded baseball game under these new rules, facing a team called the New York Nine at the Elysian Fields in Hoboken, New Jersey. The Knickerbockers lost that game badly, 23-1, but the rules they created became the foundation for everything that followed. The game spread rapidly throughout the 1850s, particularly across the northeastern United States, with amateur clubs forming in cities and towns eager to adopt this increasingly popular pastime. Then came the Civil War, and in one of history's strange twists, the brutal conflict actually accelerated baseball's growth rather than slowing it down. Soldiers from different regions, thrown together in military camps, played baseball to pass the time between battles. And when the war ended in 1865, these men carried the game back home with them to every corner of the country, spreading standardized rules far beyond where they had originated. By 1869, the sport took its next major step forward when the Cincinnati Red Stockings became the first fully professional baseball team, openly paying every player a salary rather than relying on amateur volunteers. The team went undefeated that entire season, playing 65 games without a single loss, proving conclusively that there was real money to be made from organized competitive baseball. This success triggered the Formatio of the National Association of Professional Baseball Players in 1871, considered the first professional baseball league in history, though it struggled with instability and inconsistent franchises. That instability led directly to the creation of the National League in 1876, a more disciplined and better organized structure that still exists today as one half of Major League Baseball. The years that followed brought both incredible growth and painful challenges. Professional baseball expanded rapidly through the late 1800s, but it also became rigidly segregated, as black players were systematically excluded from organized white professional leagues starting in the 1880s, despite talented black athletes like Moses Fleetwood Walker having briefly played at the major league level early in that decade. This exclusion led to one of the most important developments in baseball's broader history, the formation of the Negro Leagues in 1920, organized by Andrew Rube Foster, creating a thriving parallel universe of professional baseball featuring legendary players who were denied the chance to compete in the segregated major leagues, despite being every bit as talented as their white counterparts. The early 20th century also brought the formation of the American League in 1901, setting up a rivalry with the National League that led to the creation of the World Series in 1903, when the two league champions faced off for the very first time. Baseball's popularity exploded further during this era, producing legendary figures like Ty Cobb, known for his ferocious competitiveness, and later Babe Ruth, whose power-hitting style in the 1920s completely transformed how the game was played, shifting strategy away from small tactical plays toward dramatic, crowd-thrilling home runs. One of the darkest moments in baseball's history came in 1919, when several members of the Chicago White Sox conspired with gamblers to intentionally lose the World Series, a scandal that became known as the Black Sox scandal. The controversy nearly destroyed public trust in the sport entirely, forcing team owners to appoint Kennesaw Mountain Landis as the first commissioner of baseball in 1920, granting him sweeping authority to protect the integrity of the game and permanently banning the players involved, even those who were legally acquitted in court. Baseball's next defining turning point arrived on April 15, 1947, when Jackie Robinson broke the sport's color barrier, becoming the first black player in the modern major league since the 1880s, signing with the Brooklyn Dodgers under the guidance of team executive Branch Rickey. Robinson faced brutal racism from opposing players, fans, and even some of his own teammates. Yet he played with extraordinary restraint and undeniable skill, paving the way for the eventual integration of the entire sport and the gradual decline of the Negro Leagues, whose greatest remaining talents finally found their way into Major League Baseball throughout the following decade. The decades that followed brought continued transformation, including the expansion of teams beyond their original East Coast strongholds, the introduction of night games under stadium lighting, the rise of televised broadcasts that brought baseball into living rooms across America, and the eventual creation of free agency in the 1970s, which gave players the right to negotiate with different teams rather than being permanently bound to a single organization for their entire career. This shift dramatically changed the economics of the sport, leading to skyrocketing player salaries and a fundamentally different relationship between athletes and team ownership. Today, baseball stands as a global sport, played and beloved not just in the United States but across Japan, the Dominican Republic, Cuba, South Korea, and Venezuela. Countries that have each produced legendary players who now compete at the highest levels of Major League Baseball. The sport has weathered steroid scandals, labor strikes, and constant competition from faster-paced entertainment. Yet it remains deeply embedded in American culture, still filling stadiums with fans who understand they are participating in a tradition stretching back further than almost any other organized sport in the country's history. That is why this story still matters. Baseball's true origin is not a tidy legend invented to make a good story, but something far more meaningful, a game passed down, argued over, rewritten and reshaped by ordinary people across generations. From English schoolyards to New York ball fields, to Civil War battlefields, to the Negro Leagues, to modern-day stadiums packed with fans from all over the world. Its history reminds us that the things we consider most authentically American often come from unexpected places, transformed over time by the people determined to make the game their own. If this story changed the way you think about America's pastime, hit like, subscribe for more true stories behind the world's greatest traditions, and tell us in the comments what topic you want us to uncover next.